everybody, and welcome to Puppy Kindergarten Week 2. Hopefully I'm switched around the correct way so that it is not mirrored. Thank you to everybody that sent me the suggestions on how to do that. I would have Googled it myself eventually, but it's way easier if people just tell me how to do it, because then I know I got it right. So let me just make sure that this is working. Looks like it is. Okay. Good. All right. So this week we're going to be continuing Paw Pad, and we're going to be continuing ground tether, and we're also going to be adding the new skills of collar cues in a chair and foundational sit, which we'll talk about later. So we're going to start with the Paw Pad, and hopefully your puppies over this past week have advanced to the point where they will pretty quickly get on the Paw Pad when given an opportunity. It does not mean that they have to be perfect. Mine still isn't. Every once in a while she'll just kind of walk up to it and stand there and look somewhere else like she doesn't know what it's there for. But 9 times out of 10 she'll get on the Paw Pad and she'll stay there until I move her or ask her to do something else. So we're going to warm up first with just regular targeting the Paw Pad and stepping up on it. And then we're going to switch to handler movement on the Paw Pad. So handler movement while the puppy is on the Paw Pad is the foundation of the stay command and teaching the puppy to hold position no matter what you, the handler, are doing. Just like with everything else, we're going to start it very small. Ouch, that's my finger. And move on to longer distances and longer durations. All right, so I'm going to get the Paw Pad and move her leash out of the way. Like I said last week, they don't have to be on leash for this, but I do like the leash on if I think she might try to run away, so I can just step on it and catch her. But I'm not going to be moving her anywhere with the leash. So, we'll pick up the toy. Playtime's over, Cayman. Drop it. Alright, so she doesn't know drop it. Obviously, we're going back to basics on that. Drop it. Good girl. Okay, here's the Paw Pad. I'm just going to hold her back with the leash while I set the Paw Pad down. And then we're going to walk up to it. Yes, good girl. All right. Yes, I'm just going to remind her a couple times that we like duration on the Paw Pad. Yes. Tech support, am I facing the right way or am I not? Okay, good. So puppy should be on my left. Yes. What? Okay. We're adjusting the camera angle. Hold on. Possibility this thing might fall on his face. That's okay. Yes. Good girl. Okay. So when I start teaching her to stay in position with on the Paw Pad, I'm going to move just my right foot and just a small bit. If she gets off the Paw Pad, I'm just going to back her up and let her get back on it again. Ready? Ready, ready? Good girl. Come on. Yes. Good girl. Whoops. I probably shouldn't have black puppy against black stove. So next time I set this thing down, I'm setting it next to the counter. Yes. Now, as soon as I give her this treat, I'm going to move my right foot and then move it back really quick. Yes. I didn't yes her until my foot was all the way back. Do it again. Yes. Good girl. And I'm going to step it behind. Yes. Good. Very small movements at first. Then I'm going to pick her up and move her back, because what I don't want, what I have a habit of doing, is letting her just hang out on the Paw Pad while I'm talking to you guys. And that's not really what I should be doing. Because she's going to forget why she's on there and she's going to get off, and then I'm not going to pay attention or see her do it, and then it will be too late. So really, if you're not working on the Paw Pad, you should pick it up or you should remove the puppy. So I'm going to do another practice of that. So we'll get her on first. Let's go. Yes, good girl. And she actually has not done this perfectly every time today, believe it or not. Yes. Yes. Good. Back. Yes. And now I'm going to add out to the side. Yes. Good girl. She's about to sit, so I'm just going to deliver the treat in a way that gets her to stand up again. Yes. Good girl. Out to the side. Yes. Really, really short right at the beginning. Yes. The next step is to pivot in front of her, but I'm not going to do that yet because I don't think she's going to stay there. Pick her up and pick up the paw pad. So for everybody at home, this is when you can go ahead and do what I just did with your puppy. And I will look at the questions. I believe Catherine's on answering questions, but I'll just see if any go by while I'm watching. Okay, let's see what we got here. All right. Well, I don't see any questions right now. If you have a question, type it in and I will try to answer it while people at home are practicing with their puppies. And I realize it's kind of impossible to practice with your puppy and type a question at the same time. So that's okay. We'll wait for a few minutes. Yes, this puppy is very smart. Thank you to whoever said that. She's smart and she likes to work. Right, pretty girl? Right, pretty Cayman? And we work on this about 5 minutes. All right. Looks like not a lot of questions yet. That's good. Hopefully that means everybody's doing awesome and nobody has any questions at all. The next phase of this exercise, which we're going to move on to in a minute, is stepping in front of the puppy while they're on the paw pad. And notice that I still have the paw pad up against the wall right now, actually the stove, but the reason for that is because she has not had enough practice of getting the muscle memory to keep her in position if I were to put it in the middle of the floor. So I don't move it off the wall till probably week 3 or week 4. Week 3 would actually be a little early, because I think it's usually week 4 when I do that. Good girl. Very good. I hope everybody's puppies at home are having fun playing along. I know all the ones I saw at the troubleshooting Zoom session on Friday were doing really well. So if they were indicative of what the other puppies are doing at home, that is great. Right, pup? All right. So I'm going to try to get to the next step of this, which is moving in front of her. Even though that violates my own rule of never turning my back to the camera, I'm going to do it anyway because that's what the manual says to do. So we're going to do it. Right, baby? Okay, let's get you up. Here, look what I got. Look what I got here, and now look what I got here. So I'm gonna set her next to the wall, or the cabinet, so you can see her better, hopefully. All right? She's looking at me like, what? Yes, good girl. So I'm gonna go back to little movements. Yes. Yes. Good girl. Yes. Good. All right, I'm going to try getting in front of her just a little bit. Yes. Yes. Good. Let's hope I don't fall over the puppy on the paw pad. Yes. Okay, so she said that wasn't the best yes because she was actually moving while I was yesing her. However, I yesed her, and that means she gets a treat. Even if she did something I didn't like after, even if my yes is sloppy, in order for yes to be powerful, it has to always mean you get a treat. Because if it doesn't, then it's not going to be as useful when you're training your puppy stuff. All right, ready? Ready? Yes. Whoa, that was interesting leash motion. Yes. Good girl. Yes. Good girl. I'm going to move my left foot just a little. Yes. Good. Yes. Good girl. She's about to sit, so I just lure her forward into a stand again. Yes. Good girl. Yes. Very good. Good puppy. Good girl. Another question I get often is it okay to verbally praise the puppy when she's on the paw pad? The answer is yes, it is okay. It's not only okay, it's desirable We want the puppy to associate verbal praise with the food because it makes the verbal praise more valuable. But the most important thing there is that your yes has to come first, because yes tells the dog exactly what I like. I like that your feet are on the paw pad when I'm moving. Once they've heard that, they know their treat is coming. So the information has been communicated to them exactly what you like. And so it could sound, if you do that, you say, yes. And then you give a treat, and then, good girl, good puppy, what a good girl. If you praise verbally while you're giving the treat, then a lot of times that will, over time, cause our verbal praise to get more valuable. Because while we like to think that our puppies hang on every word we say and they think we're the most important things in the world, food is often, usually a stronger reinforcer than praise. But we can kind of bulk praise up and make it more valuable by pairing it with food. Yes! Good girl, good girl. So that's what it should look like. What it shouldn't look like is, good girl, yes! See, that's confusing to her because we only want there to be one marker, and the marker should be yes. If the marker is verbal praise, then when she's walking along down the street doing a good job, and we say, good girl, then she's going to stop and look at me for a treat. We do not want that. We want them to stop for nothing except the verbal yes. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody. So you all at home can go along with practice with your puppy. Step in front of them if you can, but remember, just make it a little baby step. Nobody at this point should be walking all the way across the room unless you've been working every single day with your puppy and you're way ahead of the class and your puppy's perfectly solid. But hopefully everybody's kind of following along the curriculum and staying where they're supposed to be, right? Right, baby? Good girl. And just check the questions really quick. Let's see here. I don't know why. For some reason, I can never see all the questions while it's live streaming, but I go back and look at them later. So if Catherine didn't answer, or if I didn't answer, there's a good chance one of us will answer later on. Good girl. Good puppy. After this, we're going to go on to ground tether because although I wanted to do collar cues because it's the most challenging thing for a lot of people, I wanted to do that next, but I'm afraid that if we leave ground tether till the end, the puppy's going to fall asleep because this session is probably about 10 minutes too long for the average puppy's attention span of this age. Right, pup? She says, I have a great attention span for chewing on this toy. Good girl. No, not your leash, the toy. There you go. Good puppy. All right. We're going to do ground tether next. I'm going to I'll do it without my assistant first, and then I'll do it with my assistant. So you can do either with or without an assistant. Either one is okay. An assistant is probably a little better because they can make the distraction more interesting by moving it around and making the puppy, making it more appealing to the puppy. But if you don't have an assistant, you don't have one, and we don't always have one. So I'll start out without one, and then we'll move on to with one, if my assistant is available. I think he is. But let me start without it. Okay, so moving on to ground tether. Paw Pad's up on the counter. And you're going to get the puppy on your left side. Pup, pup, or Kayla, come here, Kayla. I still sometimes call her Pup Pup because I forget she has a name. Okay, so we're going to put the puppy on our left side, and I'll just even line them up. I'll physically put them there. Step on the leash with just enough slack in it so that when the puppy's in good position on your left side, this leash is totally loose. You don't want to step on it like this, because then it's tight to begin with. You don't want to step on it like this, because then the puppy can run and get the distraction and learn exactly the opposite of what we want to teach them. So about like this is about right. And it should be under the ball of your feet, foot. Hopefully you all are wearing good shoes and not flip-flops or sandals, because it often will just kind of whisk out from underneath the sole of one of those. All right, so I'm going to start with my first distraction, which is just a regular dog toy, but it's new to her. An illegal toy, by the way, so this came out of the illegal toy hiding place and is going back in there when we're done with this. I'm just going to toss on the ground in front of her, Well, I threw it too far and it rolled. Yes, I'm still gonna yes her though because she looked at it, she saw it, and she made a choice not to move. So remember with ground tether, we can yes two things. We can yes the choice not to move, don't do it yet. And we can yes when they do pull towards it, when they release the tension and start to come back toward you. They don't have to come all the way back toward you. When they're first learning this, it's just oftentimes it's just a very little tiny release of tension. So we have to acknowledge that little release of tension, or else they're not going to know what we want in that situation. So let me try my other distraction. This is a palm frond, which is irresistible when we're outside. She can't think of anything about the palm frond if she sees it on the ground when we're trying to busy. So we'll see what it's like in here. I'm going to do it by myself first. Yes, good girl. That was just a really little release of tension, but it was a release of tension. So as soon as I yesed her, I also stopped shaking this, because what we don't want with the distraction is we don't want the puppy to get the treat and then immediately lunge back toward the distraction. We want to make it as black and white as we can what we're teaching. So we want the puppy to concentrate on the reward that it's earned by releasing tension, not be wolfing it down with the other eye on the distraction, thinking, when can I get back to that? Do that again. Yes, good girl. Some people get worried because they think, well, what if she thinks she has to sit every time she has a distraction, because that's just kind of what they end up doing sometimes. If they're sitting when they're backing away from the distraction, it's okay to reward them for a sit, and don't worry too much about whether they're sitting or standing, whether they're in perfect position by your left leg. I usually do reward them in a position that puts them back by my left leg, just because it's easier. And just like I said last week, we're always thinking about what is the way we can make it the clearest to the dog. And the clearest to the dog is for the dog to be in this position as much as possible. And if she's not in there by herself, then I will do what I can within reason to put her there. Now what I can't do is yes her and then hold back the treat until she circles behind me and comes back into heel position. That would not be fair, because that would be requiring her to do something else after she's already gotten marked. And if too much time goes by between the mark and reward, then the connection isn't clear to the dog. So you can't make them do additional stuff after you've already yesed them. You can, though, deliver the treat in a way to make it more likely that they'll be in the position you want. So let me show that one more time. So I'll distract her with this. Yes! Well, she didn't move, so that didn't show you anything. I'm going to have my distractor come over here and just try to just try to beckon her with your voice, but don't use her name. Just hey there, puppy.
Hey, puppy. Hey, puppy.
Yes, good girl. So she put herself back in heel position, but if she didn't, like say that she was still out here, then when I yesed her, I would, go ahead and do it again.
Hey, puppy. Hey,
Yes,
puppy, puppy,
I yesed her because that time I couldn't stand watching her make a good decision and not reward it. It didn't show what I wanted, but that was a good choice because she wanted to say hi and she did not. All right, one more time.
Puppy, 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 puppy.
Yes, good girl. So I can kind of back her up like that with my hand. If I take the reward and let her lick it and move my hand back while she's licking it, she'll put herself in heel position. Yes, good girl. Same thing here. I can just kind of, well, she went down there. She's getting tired. But what was my point? My point was, even though the position is not critical for reward here, it is, if you can get her there, then it's nice to get her in heel position or as close to it as you can. And if she were to say that when she released the tension on the leash, she then moved forward and sat at the end of her leash again, so we looked like this when I started the exercise. Like say I yesed her over here, but she came back here, then I would just do this, step up next to her. So we start with a clear slate. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, I'm going to check the questions, and you all at home can practice with your puppy with or without a helper. And the next thing we'll do is, I guess we'll do foundational sit next. Hey, Papa, come here. Come here. yes, Carrie, who said the palm frond's a great idea. Yes, the palm fronds are very appealing to puppies. I try to never busy her around them because she finds them way more interesting than the thought of busying a lot of the time. So leaves are good. Rolled up paper is really good. The cats, surprisingly, are not that good. They were really exciting last week, but now they're not as interesting to her. So, does it work with squirrels and geckos, Mary? If you have the squirrel and gecko under control, yes. The key to a distraction as far as impulse control session is you have to be able to control the distance. So if you have a squirrel that will run right up to you, then you can't use that because then the puppy can jump on it, get it, and learn that if it pulls on leash, then it gets what it wants, what we don't want it to learn. So any distraction you have has to be controllable, and that's true no matter what level of impulse control we're talking about, whether it's beginning or high school level. A distraction you can't control is not a good one to work. It's one to get away from. Let's see what else here. I give up on looking at questions while I'm doing this. I'm just going to hope that everybody's doing okay, and that if they're not, that Catherine's answering their questions, and if she isn't, then we'll come back and answer them later. Okay, so the foundational sit. Now before we do this exercise, I'm going to confess that I find this probably the single most difficult thing that we do in puppy kindergarten, and I anticipate that doing it live is going to be even more challenging because this is probably the exercise that I have to hands-on help people with more than any other one. The point of the foundational sit is that we want to lure the puppy into a sit in such a way that their back end comes forward rather than them sitting back onto their haunches, if that makes sense. The reason we want them to do that is because we're always working towards an adult dog that will sit in heel position next to the handler with the dog's right leg next to our left leg, and if they sit back, they end up sitting one step behind us and kind of out of position. So the whole reason we want them to learn to tuck their back feet up is because it creates a better finished sit. But I will also say, if you struggle with this, don't worry, your puppy will get it on the Paw Pad. And there are times when if I have a lot of trouble with a particular puppy, I have skipped the foundational sit and moved straight to the sit on the Paw Pad. There, I said it. So I'm probably not the only one who's done that. It's not the end of the world if you do it. Another thing is that when we're teaching the sit, we don't want to add the cue until the puppy's doing the behavior the way that we want it to. So for example, I don't want to use the word sit now while I'm trying to get her to get the muscle memory for the behavior I want her to do, because the chance that she'll attach the word to an incorrect muscle memory is there. And she might do it. It's better to wait until she's following the lure, sitting exactly how we want. Then we can add the verbal cue. And I just did Dear RM on that subject. So if you're confused about when to add the verbal cue, or if you have questions about why we don't add it right away, go back and read that, and hopefully it will make it a little more clear. I fully know that a lot of the puppies sit for their dinner right now, and you hold up the bowl, and some of you probably say sit, and they probably say sit, or they probably do sit. In a perfect world, we wouldn't be saying sit at all until we're teaching it on the Paw Pad in the position we want. But don't worry if you're saying sit, the puppy's sitting. The puppies all learn how to sit, and they pretty much all learn how to sit in a nice position on your left side. So there is a reason why we do it, like an academic reason that is legit, but in the real world, if sit comes out of your mouth before the puppy's doing a perfect sit, not the end of the world. Okay, so to teach the foundational sit, you need a puppy that is standing up, and you need some kibble in your hand. The exact position of the puppy doesn't matter much for this exercise. I usually like them in front of me. And what we're going to do, well, first we're going to put away this toy. This puppy is getting a little activated, and I'm pretty sure the next thing she's going to do is start biting my hand or the leash. She might need a busy break, but I'm hoping to get through at least foundational sit and before we start collar cues, hoping to not have to take her out before that. Okay, so we'll get her up on her feet, and we are going to try to lure her forward and up. They say a 15 to 20 degree angle. So a 90-degree angle would be like this. So 15 to 20 degree angle is kind of like this. I usually do either put my hand back here or just kind of right here to stop her from going all over the place. What we're trying to get her to do is walk her back legs up into a sit. So watch her back legs, and we're going to see if I can get, or I'm going to see if I can get them coming up towards her front legs. Because I'm luring, I'm not going to yes. Good girl. That was pretty close, I think. That's another reason I don't particularly like this exercise, because it's hard for me to see them sometimes. Right here, baby. Let's do it again. Come on. Ready? So we're gonna get her into a stand. I'm gonna put my hand right here. Remember, I'm definitely not like pushing down on her or anything like that. I'm just physically blocking her from swinging her butt out of position. All right, so we're gonna go forward and up just a little bit. Watch your back leg. Good girl. She actually pretty much does it, which is nice and unusual for me. So it's not me. It's just that this puppy happens to be not so bad at it. Cayman, come here, Cayman. Hey, Cayman, you're such a good puppy. Can we do this one more time? If you're sitting at home and you have no idea what's going on, don't worry. We'll make it up next week. We'll sit on the Paw Pad. All right, so I'm going to move her forward, get my hand back here. Up in the air, watch her back feet. Hopefully her front end will stay stationary and her back feet will come towards her front end. That's actually pretty much what she did. Also, if I had a non-slip surface, this would be a lot better. I should have a non-slip surface and I do not, so shame on me. Hopefully at home you're doing this on carpet and it's easier. Let's see. Good girl. Are we supposed to have a non-skid surface? Absolutely. I don't know why I don't have a non-skid surface other than the fact that I teach this, that I skip the foundational sit so often that I didn't even think about it. So that's probably the real answer. Even with that, she's still doing a nice job, and that is not, that's not really normal for me. So even though it looks like I know how to do it and get her to do it, it's not always that easy. It's just that this particular puppy didn't find that all that difficult. And this puppy probably needs a busy break. Here, exit stage left. There you go. Go with daddy. Okay, well, you're going outside to busy, just a little busy. I'm going to look at the comments here. Okay. I suspect she will busy fast because I know that she has to go. And with the foundational sit, because I was luring, I'm not yesing her. I am feeding, I am pezzing her, and I should have said that when she sits. But the most important thing is not that she holds that position, it's that she tucks her legs up in that position. And again, I've said this a lot of times, and I'm sorry that this is confusing because I know that it is from experience teaching a lot of puppy K classes. I think this is probably the single thing that I have the most difficulty, or that my handlers have the most difficulty with, is understanding the foundational sit. And when you have a puppy that doesn't get it, it's really difficult. There's quite a few that will kind of sit back on their haunches. Like, they'll come forward only so far, and then they'll just look at you like, what are you doing? And then they'll just kind of sit back like, I give up. For those puppies, really, the answer is to keep the lure close to their nose and move it slower and just play around with different angles. But even then, it's still sometimes really tough, but they're all going to learn how to sit properly on the Paw Pad anyway, so don't worry too much about it. Thank you all for pointing out the non-skid surface. I cannot believe I forgot that. I'm kind of short of non-skid surfaces in my house, but I have them, and I should have put one out here. Your job will be a lot easier if you do. Next, we're going to talk about collar cues. So I hope that everybody has a chair that they can use for collar cues, and I hope that everybody has watched the video. So this is one of the newest things that we're teaching in puppy kindergarten. We call it power steering for the puppy. Did you go?
Yep.
Thank you. Good puppy. We want a dog that will move easily when we cue them with a leash to get into a certain position. We don't want them to resist and pull backwards and try to go another direction. I know that at the guide dog schools that I worked at before, we had quite a few dogs until we started doing this kind of exercise. If you tried to pull them, they tried to go the other way. They tried to pull against pressure. What we want to teach them to do is yield to pressure when they feel it. This is really helpful for when they're older dogs, when you're trying to get them into a tight space, or you're trying to position them like at a restaurant, or if you've been in my classes, you know one of my favorite exercises is getting them into a small bathroom stall. A puppy that knows collar cues is super easy to move into position where you want them, even if it's not the easiest position for them to be in. And they also, it's really easy to get them back into heel position with a collar cue. And when your puppy knows collar cues, you have a fun game that you can play anywhere. When we get to round the clock in week 4, that's a game you can play like if you're out in public and your puppy starts getting bored. You can just do a little game of round the clock, and also it looks really impressive to pedestrians walking by. They think that the dog is really smart when they see it doing that, and that you're a really good trainer, and that feels good to everybody. So I love collar cues. This is another exercise that's challenging for a lot of people. We're going to start this week with the puppy in a chair, or not with the puppy in a chair, with the handler in a chair. The reason we start with the handler in the chair is because if the handler starts standing on the ground, then it's too hard for us to stand still. We need to be stationary, and the puppy needs to be the only thing that moves. So I'm going to get my chair, and I will say too, my kitchen is just a little bit narrow for an ideal place to teach this exercise. I think it's probably going to be okay because this puppy is really small. But if I had a big puppy or one that wasn't comfortable with tight spaces, then this would be a little bit difficult. So let me get my chair and put that up there. All right, Cayman, what do you think? We have not practiced this exercise. We haven't practiced any of these exercises, so I want you to see them being done for the first time with a puppy that does not know what she's doing. So let me get my chair. Puppy. Good girl. Pick up this. All right. So we're going to start right here. Let's see, am I in the middle? No. Now I'm in the middle. I'm in the middle of the screen, but not in the middle of the kitchen. And now I'm in the middle of the kitchen. I'm sorry it's not the middle of my screen, but it's going to have to be good enough. So to me, it's the easiest to start with the puppy right in front of me. And I like to put my treat bag right here because if the puppy, if you have it on one side or the other, then the puppy will typically be much quicker to go over to the side where it is and much slower to go to the side where it isn't. And even though that can still happen in the middle, it doesn't seem to happen as much when the treat bag's in the middle. So we're going to have, the puppy has just untied my shoe. Hold on for a second. That's what happens when the handler talks too much and the puppy's not engaged. That is totally my fault. Toddler at a poetry reading. Okay, so we're going to have the puppy in front of us, and the handler is going to take a very short length of leash in their left hand, and I fold up the rest because I hate having it flailing around. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply just a little bit of pressure to try to get her to move. I'm going to apply it in this direction, and it's going to be horizontal like this. It's not going to be like this. I'm not dragging the puppy either. That's probably the most common misunderstanding people have. When we say use collar pressure and try to move the puppy, they'll just, oh, okay, I'll move her. Like, that's not what we're doing. We're applying a little bit of pressure and getting the puppy to move herself. As soon as she does move, even if it's just a little tiny bit, even if it's just one step, look what I did with my leash, then I'm going to yes her and reward her. And when I yes her, I'm going to take my hand that's holding the leash and bring it right back up to her collar to make sure that the the leash is perfectly loose when I'm rewarding her. Again, that's because we want it to be very clear to the dog. Loose is good, tight is not good. So I'm going to put on just a little pressure to the left, and I'm going to stand her up first. I don't want to do it from a down. That would be silly. She's getting tired. I can see the look on her face. So a little bit of pressure, and I will be ready to mark and reward as soon as she moves. Yes. She moved with like no pressure whatsoever. All right, now I'm gonna move her back behind my chair. This isn't gonna be as easy because see how she's staring at my treat bag? She's not gonna wanna go back there. So I'm just gonna keep on the pressure until she does. Yes, good girl. And I don't know if you can see, but as soon as I then I moved my hand right next to her collar so that it was loose. All right, I'm going to move her forward now. Switch the leash to my right hand. It's still folded up. I still have a very short length of leash, and I'm just going to do a little tug. I'm going to wait her out. Yes, good girl. So I don't know if you guys could see that, but she kind of sat back like a mule, and she was like, nope, I'm not going. So I just held the pressure on, and sometimes when I first put pressure on, I'll actually when I move my arm, I'll take my elbow and like pin it to my knee or something so that I don't have it out in space, because when I have it out in space, my tendency is to keep moving it. When I have it anchored, I'm not going to move it as much. So I'm going to, again, I've got the leash in my right hand. I'm now trying to get her around the front of my body to this side. So I'm going to do this. Yes! I'm only expecting like one step at this point. Although I feel like I could probably get more with this puppy because she seems to move pretty easily. Some of them will not. I'm sure some of you at home are going to have a puppy that just sits there and you feel like you're putting on as much tension as you can when the leash is still not moving. When Michelle Pouliot taught us this, she said when you start to hear Jeopardy music in your head because your puppy's not moving, that's when you need to increase the tension. So sometimes you do need to you need to put on quite a bit of tension before the puppy yields if you have a sticky puppy. All right, so here we go. Leash is in my right hand. I'm going to move her to my right. I'm going to put on the leash, put on pressure. Yes, that was a very small release of tension. But I do believe she did it. I don't think she was just slipping. Do it again. Yes, good girl. So I'm making sure my leash is really loose when I treat her. And then we're gonna go to my right again. She's pulling against me, not towards me. Yes, good girl. Next week, I promise I'll have a mat. Behind me? Yes, good girl. Good girl. Behind me again? Yes. So right now I'm getting probably like 1 to 2 steps of motion each time I pull. Leash is still in my right hand. I'm going to take it forward. Yes. That time I got several steps, but I'm not, oh, look at that. But I think she might be thinking now, oh, okay, the game is to go from here to here to here to here. Some of them figure that out. That's not really what we want them to learn, but we have more games coming up that will teach them what we do want them to learn. So I'm going to go switch my leash to my left hand. Horizontal pull behind the chair. Yes, good girl. And she's actually gone behind the chair and turned herself around, which is what they seem to do when they start to get it. It seems impossible that she could even be beginning to get it because she hasn't done hardly any of it. But some puppies are really fast with this, and some are really slow. Yes! So now I can ask her for more steps because I think she's going to do them. And behind me, leash in my right hand, horizontal. Yes! Good girl! Oh, you're making it look so easy, Caitlin. It's not always this easy, really. Yes. Good girl. All right, leash in my left hand. I'm gonna pull behind me. Yes. Look at that. See how she turned around perfectly? That's actually our end goal for this exercise. We want them to go behind and flip around facing the other way. And I'm really surprised she's doing it so quickly. Yes. Good. Slippery floor and all. Yes! That was a little harder because her eye was glued to my treat bag. I'm not going to look at her because if I were to make eye contact with her right now, that would definitely slow down the learning process. So I'm going to look at the phone. She's going to go. Yes! Good girl! Very nice. What Puppy, good puppy. Now, I predict I'm going to get a big movement here. So I'm going to move her forward, and yes! That was almost halfway around. I try to feed her more or less where she was when I marked her, more or less. Michelle Pouliot calls that feeding the ghosts, feed them where they were. It's not so much that she has to be there, but I don't want her to get the idea that the game is to go from here to here really fast. All right. Back. She's looking at my other hand. That's why she doesn't want to move. Yes! Good girl. Back behind me again. Yes! Good. Good girl. Back to my right hand. Forward. Yes! Well, that might have been really fast because she's coming back to the treat bag. Who knows? Yes! Good girl. You're such a good girl. And around here. Yes! Look at how fast she's moving now. That's really good. You're a good puppy. Not looking at her. Yes! Good girl. It's always harder for them when they're going away from the treat bag. Yes! Good girl. Good puppy. All right, I'm going to call that finished for her exercise for tonight because she really did just about everything I wanted her to do. She moved in the direction I moved her. She did resist occasionally, and most of them will resist occasionally. Some of them will resist a lot more than that. So if you got a much more resistant puppy, it's just going to take you longer. Pip was one of the most resistant puppies ever. In fact, Michelle demoed on Pip when Pip was about 4 months old at the AC conference. And I remember her saying, whoa. She looked at Pip and was like, you're going to need a lot of these exercises. And she was right. Now, Pip is now really good at color cues, but it took a lot of work. So even though Cayman got it really quick, not every puppy gets it that quick. Right. Right, pup. Good girl. Would it be good to change up and do the same side again when the dog is in front? Yeah, you could do this. You could totally do that. I think you're saying if you moved her from the left to in front, then would it be good to move her back to the left? Yeah, you could do that. I think it's easier for the puppy and they understand better if you are consistent in the beginning. So get them moving from one side to the other, but then you can definitely change it up for sure. Yeah, I wish I had a more difficult puppy. I can tell you, she'll be difficult when it comes to like real world impulse control. She will definitely be a challenge out there because we need to figure out a way to take these sessions outside because she's a little pistol outside and she likes everything. Everything out there is more interesting than me. So hopefully we'll get some of that. She's really good at the in-the-house stuff, but there's no perfect puppies, and she definitely is not. Yeah, I see Catherine answered a question about eye contact. Eye contact is a big issue with puppies. A lot of times, no matter what they're doing, it goes back to eye contact somehow. Like if they're breaking a stay, it's because you're looking at them and you're looking them in the eye, and they want to get up and come to you. If they're not stepping on the paw pad, it's sometimes because you're looking down at them and they're looking up at you. So that's why I always say, try to get your head facing forward and just use your peripheral vision so that they don't know that you're looking at them. Eye contact can definitely be an interfering factor in training. Also, another thing that eye contact can do is cause them to seek eye contact, which can actually be a problem later in training when they're with a student who can't see. Because if they're used to getting eye contact, they find it reinforcing and they're trying to get eye contact and the person is not giving it to them, then that can be a little confusing to them and cause relationship building to go a little slower. So while we all love looking at our puppies' faces because they're so beautiful, I'm not saying never do it. I'm just saying try to be aware if you're doing it too much during a training session. When I look at myself on camera, I do this all the time. It's because our dogs are beautiful. We like to look at them. And it makes us feel loved when they look back at us like, oh, you're the best person in the world. So we just have to be aware that we're doing that and try to limit it. You don't have to get rid of it entirely, but limit is good. I'm going to give you guys some more time at home because I know that this usually takes quite a while, or often takes quite a while for new puppies. The reason I included the GDB video in the list is because I think, well, for one thing, they do a nice job of explaining it, and so do we, but it just helps some people to see it demonstrated with a different handler in a different setting. And it's consistent with our method because we learned it from them. So really, it's exactly the same exercise as Guide Dogs for the Blind does, except that they use the marker word nice and we use the marker word yes. But other than that, it's exactly the same. This puppy is very close to going to sleep. I was going to try a little more handler movement on the Paw Pad, but she's getting pretty sleepy. So there are other things we have to talk about tonight in class too, a little body handling, and then I want to touch on a couple of different subjects about socialization, which is going to be a challenge for us right now, but there are some ways we can get around it. Good girl. She's even so sleepy she does not want her toy. She just wants to lay here in Mama's lap. So this is actually a really good time for body handling. Today our lesson plan calls for us to massage a body part, so I'm going to wait a little bit longer because I know that there's people that are still practicing with the collar cues. But I can't resist. While this puppy's sleeping, I'm going to massage her. So massaging is just, you know, squeezing, applying some pressure to a body part and then releasing it. Do their foot. Let her lay flat on the ground because I think she'll find that more comfortable than what she's doing right now. I'll take her ears and just kind of run my fingers down them and squeeze just a little bit. And hands down her side, squeeze just a little. Good girl. I know you're such a good sleepy puppy. Don't we love when they're sleepy? Good girl. So she could be doing that because she doesn't really like what I'm doing to her, or she could be doing it because she's, I don't know, thirsty and she's looking at her water bowl, which is just off camera. So if you've been working on color cues at home, now is probably a good time to sit down on the floor with your puppy and get them in your lap like this and practice a little bit of body handling while I talk. My puppy is now sleepy enough that I can talk without her doing something like untying my shoes or biting the computer or anything else. So one person asked me if I could talk about demand barking. Yes, I can definitely talk about demand barking. Demand barking is what happens when the puppy wants something and it can't get it, and so it barks instead. It's like a little kid going, I want that, I want that, I want that, I want that. That's what they're, sweetheart. That's what they're doing when they're demand barking. It can happen like when they're on tie down and they want to get off. It can happen when you're doing impulse control and they want the thing that you're distracting them with. It can happen when you're in regular puppy kindergarten class or regular class and the instructor is talking and your puppy is bored. It can happen when your puppy's making eye contact with another dog but can't get to them. In fact, I guarantee that if you're at a meeting and two dogs are just eyeballing each other like that, one of those two dogs is probably going to bark very soon unless you do something to interrupt it. So one of the best ways to, well, first of all, let me tell you what feeds demand barking, what makes it keep happening, and that is if the bark causes the puppy to get what it wants, which a lot of times is attention. So say that it's on tie down and you're cooking and the puppy barks and you look at it and the puppy thinks like, oh, that worked, like I made a noise, she looked, so maybe if I just make a little more noise then she will come and let me off. You have to be really careful not to reinforce demand barking by looking at them, and sometimes people will think they're correcting it or scolding the puppy for doing it, but the puppy doesn't actually care. Like if your puppy barks and you look at the puppy and say, what are are you making so much noise? Do you think that will make the puppy bark less in the future? No, that's going to make them bark more in the future because they think that they got your attention and you talked to them. That's what they wanted. So the best thing you can do with demand barking is ignore it. If it gets excessive, you can pick up the puppy and take it to a timeout. I know we say don't use their crate as a punishment, don't use their tie down as a punishment, but if the puppy's just standing there barking at you, that's, for most people, that's kind of intolerable to live with for 5 minutes or 10 minutes. And also, usually you're kind of looking at the puppy anyway because it's annoying and you're wishing that it would stop. So if the puppy knows that you're looking at it, it's going to keep on doing it. So that might be a time for a timeout, somewhere where the puppy can't see you. Also, if say that you're looking at your puppy, if you're doing like a ground tether or whatever, or you're standing still with your puppy and, I don't know, talking to somebody else in the room and you're standing on your puppy's leash and your puppy's looking at you like, I'm bored, let me off. If you're making eye contact with the puppy, it's probably going to bark pretty quickly. So that would be another time when you have to make sure that you're not looking at the puppy at all. When the puppy gets older, say that you have it out like in a restaurant or something, if it's laying on the ground staring up at you, that's another time when demand barking is really likely to happen. So if you can block eye contact with it somehow, either by like moving it under the table a little bit or putting a chair in front of its face or something like that, then that will often stop the demand barking. If you're in a meeting, which I know we're not having right now, but when we get back to them, if there's something in the room I can put a visual barrier between the puppy and what it's looking at, then I will do that. Another form of timeout that we do is, I know you new puppy raisers have not seen this, but gosh, I'm trying to think of a way to get it on video. When the puppy barks, and we do this a lot in puppy meetings, if a puppy barks, we abruptly turn around and walk away with the puppy to about, 10 or 15 feet away or out of the room if we can. And then we just stand there for 10 seconds and we do not interact with the puppy at all. So we'll just like look at the ceiling or look off to the other side of where the puppy is. Then after 10 seconds of ignoring them, we'll bring them back into the room and give them a cue that they know how to respond to, so that we can reestablish our positive relationship with the puppy. I do want to demo a timeout, but not right now because she's just not in the right mindset. That wouldn't be fair to her. She's sleepy and she wouldn't understand and it wouldn't make any sense to her. So if I can, over the next week, think of a time to get a good video, then I will definitely do that. How do I handle a puppy who barks at your other dogs to engage them in play? Yeah, you have to break them up. Because a lot of times sometimes you do. If your dog is barking at the other dogs and they just walk away, then sometimes your other dogs will actually teach them that barking doesn't work. I'm lucky because my dogs are good at that. Like if they're getting barked at, they'll kind of get this look on their face like, ew, stop, and just leave. So they're actually helping to teach her that barking doesn't work. If your puppy barks at other dogs and they engage, then you're going to have to separate them. And that is a pain. I totally understand that. You can maybe put the older dogs in another room or just physically separate them somehow. Everybody on a tie down, that works. We have way too many dogs in the house right now, so they're on tie down right now. 2 of them are on tie down, 2 of them are in another room. And that's just part of managing a multi-dog household. I mean, some vocalization in play is okay. People have different tolerance for that. Mine's pretty low because I get annoyed by them barking. So I break them up if they're barking just because it's irritating to me. Alice barks when she can't see. Yeah, if the puppy barks when they can't see you, that's something you kind of have to work on when you have to work on it strategically. So like I would, if you're getting the puppy used to being on a tie down without you there, then I wouldn't have them on the tie down very long when you can't see them. Right? You have to start with a really short period of time, like 5 seconds or 10 seconds. So put the puppy on the tie down, leave the room, come back, praise them. You could give them a treat, but if you give them too many treats, then the expectation of I'm going to get a treat starts happening, and then that kind of creates an anticipatory mindset sometimes. So it also helps if you can put them on a tie down when you're in the room and they're sleepy. So like put them on a tie down at your desk. You sit down at your desk. Puppy falls asleep, and then you get up and move around out of the room like while the puppy's sleepy. That helps a lot. I do that a lot with this puppy. They will bark when they first are on tie down and you leave because they're anxious. Like, where are you going and why am I here by myself? That's pretty normal. So I think one of the best ways to help them to stop is if you can do it while they're sleepy, let them relax and then disappear for just short periods of time and then come back. But right now, this age of puppy, if she was awake and perky, I wouldn't expect her to be quiet on a tie down in another room for longer than like maybe 20 seconds. So make sure you have a good expectation too for the puppy's age. Good puppy. A good puppy. And the last thing I was going to talk about is socialization. So even though most of us not really leaving our homes, and that's good for the present time, our puppies will still need to see stuff. If they don't see anything when they're young, then everything's going to be more concerning to them when they're older. So one thing that you can do with your puppies the age this puppy is now, first of all, they don't have all their shots. So we don't want them going places where other dogs frequent that may or may not have their shots. But you can still go like to the end of your driveway. You can set up a chair in your driveway and let them sit and watch things go by if you have a neighborhood that's at all active. Luckily we do. There's always people and dogs and bikes and kids and everything going by. So this age is probably a good age. She's about 10 weeks now, so that would be a good age to just sit out there with them and let them watch things. They don't have to do anything while they're watching. They just have to watch. If they seem apprehensive of things, then you can always mark and reward them for looking at the thing. So like if they're looking at a person going by and they look a little anxious, she does that sometimes, then I'll just yes and reward her. And what I'm rewarding her for is just looking at it. So over time, they'll eventually start to make an association with looking at the thing brings me a treat. And there's a lot to see in an average suburban neighborhood. So just because we can't get them out everywhere, that's fine. We actually, at this age, we wouldn't want them going out everywhere anyway. But two things that we really need to think about right now are the car and being left alone in the crate. Because for most of us, if this were normal times, we would be putting the puppy in the car and driving to puppy kindergarten, or driving to pick somebody up, or driving to go through the drive-thru, and most of us are not doing that right now. So I took my puppy today to run a necessary short errand, and I didn't go in anywhere, I was just picking something up, but she was not comfortable in the car, and I was looking at her like, what? My dogs are always good in the car. And then I thought that she hasn't been in here she's only been in the car twice, when I picked her up and when she got her shot. So make sure that they're getting some rides in the car, even if it's just around the block, even if you're just taking them in the car and turning it on. We don't want these puppies to get to be 5 months old and never have been in a car. The other one is leaving them alone sometimes. They really should be left alone for short periods of time in the crate when you're not home, because otherwise we're going to have a generation of puppies that can't be left alone. We don't want that either. So make sure, oh wait, somebody asked a question. If puppy's watching people and the person wants to pet the puppy, allow or not? That's a tough one, because normally we would say yes. I don't want anybody touching the puppy because I don't know where their hands have been. Like, I don't know if they're going to contaminate the puppy. So that's one that every person is going to have to make their own personal decision on. We don't want to recommend that anybody risks spreading anything in any way that they're not comfortable with. So the answer has always been yes, we let people touch the puppy when they're this age, as long as the puppy wants to be touched. We want the puppy to initiate the contact, not the person. But if you don't want people touching your puppy, like I don't, I mean, probably eventually I'll just go out with bleach wipes and have everybody wipe their hand before they pet the puppy. I don't know. I have been thinking about that actually, so I'm not sure what I'm going to do about that. But on the other hand, at least it's teaching them that pulling them towards people doesn't get them any attention from that person. So that part's good, but it's not good that they're not able to be petted by a lot of different people. Hopefully that answers the question. But yeah, with separating them, if you put them in a crate when they're tired and you know they busied and they've had a drink and they're not hungry, and they're likely to go to sleep, then just step outside without them for a while and let them know that you can leave a radio playing, you can put an extra special toy in there they don't get any other time, but just don't let them get to be 5 or 6 months old and never have been left in a crate, because that's going to be a problem too. How far can a puppy Cayman's age walk in my neighborhood? We've gone like 2 driveways down, probably. And I mean, some puppies have more stamina, but they really don't. They don't need to go that far at this age. And we a lot of times have people wanting to walk their puppies really long distances, and really they shouldn't, and they don't need to right now. For one thing, it's hard to find places where no other dogs have been, or dogs that don't have their shots might have been. I guess the middle of the road after dark is probably okay if you have a quiet-ish neighborhood. But they probably don't need to go any more than a few houses down either direction. I mean, that wipes her out. If we do that and she comes home and goes to sleep. Okay. Whining is difficult. Somebody asked about whining. Even when we used to do corrections for dogs, corrections didn't seem to work as well for whining as they did for barking, and I don't know the reason. Luckily, most puppies grow out of it. I've only seen one in my whole career that was career change for it. It is annoying though, but it usually goes away, and you don't, I mean, all the same things that work for barking, except for timeout. Timeout does not seem to work as well for whining. I don't know the reason. I think because whining is more like a manifestation of a little bit of anxiety. It's like us biting our fingernails, so for whatever reason, timeout isn't as successful. Yeah. All right. I will be sending the homework for this week to the ACs, and you all can send it out to puppy raisers who have puppies in kindergarten. I know that you can get it from the manual, but I have it already typed up and ready to send, so I'm going to send it, and you can send it out to your raisers. I'm planning to have another Friday Zoom meeting. This one will be password enabled, of course, and I'll send out instructions for that. That's optional for people who want it for either troubleshooting or feedback or anything else. It's not required, but I'll be sending that out later this week. I think that's all that I've got. If anybody has questions, feedback, or anything else, like always, please send it to me. Hope you guys are all doing well, and hope you're all enjoying your puppies. And that's all I've got. Good night, Puppyland. Power, just say power.